Hi, Cancer. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for December of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kell Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco, California.
Hey, Cancer. December's horoscope focuses on productivity at work and also relationships. If you want a big picture reading that can cover both these topics, the natal and transit reading is the best choice. You'll find links for this in the text that comes with this video. Well, Juno has been traveling through Pisces and has now gone direct, and woohoo for that. It has caused a lot of relationship problems for many people in the world, and for yourself in particular. It might have been around themes of freedom and room for growth in the relationship. And if you did have any kerfuffles, struggles, and difficulties about that in your primary relationship, just know that it's all coming to a close now. And if you haven't found closure yet, it is definitely peeking up over the horizon. So big relief is coming in that realm. Ceres starts the month in Virgo right here in your third house. And Ceres is not known for loving this house. This house has a way of abstracting and distracting Ceres' main pursuit, which is to create groundedness and order. And so she's, I think, leaving this house with some relief. Things may have gotten a little bit disorderly in terms of your personal routines and how you manage your finances. But by December 19th, she moves on into the fourth house, where she's pretty happy to be. Ceres is about good stewardship. She is all about our connection with the physical world, our physical bodies, the food we put into them, and the money we make to sustain them. In the fourth house, she has ample scope for her energies and can create balance and harmony with these things in your home life and in your family life. So that's a really great way to spend the approximately 2 months that Ceres is going to be moving along through this house. Create some balanced routines, serve up some healthy food for your family, and do things to your home that make it both more comfortable and more beautiful. Jupiter begins the month finishing out Pisces and moving faster and faster since turning direct last month, which is just wonderful. And he is going to sweep on into your 10th house fairly close to the middle of the month here, December 20th. Jupiter was in this house earlier this year, bringing you career luck and growth and expansion and potentially a feeling of restlessness in your career to expand. And if you felt that you don't have room for expansion or there is no upside potential in your career, well, then this transit earlier this year would have made you want a change. And so now is the time to do something about that. If you did a little backpedaling, maybe you went back to your resume and made some changes to it. Maybe you went to get, take a little night course to beef up your education in your career, went back and learned some things. Now that Jupiter is here back in your 10th house, moving forward again, you can absolutely move forward with any big career growth that you might want to do, whether that is, going to your boss and saying, hey, I'm a pretty important person around here. Do you think maybe there's some further compensation or a better title that I could have around here? So moving on up in that way in your career. And such things can even just be spontaneously offered when Jupiter is passing through your 10th house. But, don't sit around waiting. Always take action when Jupiter is making a great transit like this one, while you have the confidence that Jupiter brings. And if you feel yourself moved to look for a new job, this is also a really great time for that. Jupiter is going to be passing along this 10th house for several more months to come into the new year, 2023. This is definitely a use it or lose it transit. Take advantage of it while it's going on. Hey, Julia, you've got news about Mars, Venus, and Mercury, I do believe.
Oh, yes, I do. Hi there, Cancer. Let's talk about Mars first, because Mars is retrograde this month. It's been retrograde for a little while now. And this is significant because Mars only goes retrograde once every 2 years, unlike something like Saturn that goes retrograde every year, or Mercury that goes retrograde 3 times a year. So Mars is the planet of action, activity, passion, and anger. And this whole retrograde cycle is happening in your 12th house. The 12th house is a house of isolation. It's known as traditionally as the house of self-undoing, means that the tricky part of the 12th house is sometimes it can relate to the ways we sabotage ourselves. But the 12th house also has a spiritual quality, a charitable quality to it too. So with Mars retrograde in the 12th, this might be a time because Mars represents action and activity. And when a planet goes retrograde, it's a time of sort of reversing the significations of the planet, where you might have to redo things in your life, especially regarding your isolation, which is ruled by the 12th house. So maybe recently you tried to find a way to be more on your own and you realize it wasn't what you wanted. Maybe you moved out away from roommates and you're like, you know what, I don't like being alone anymore. How can I redo this in some way? If you have a spiritual side, if you do service work, if you give charity, you might find yourself redoing your actions in those areas as well. And since the 12th house can be how we sabotage ourselves at times, you might have to sort of redo something in your life if you find that you were really in a way that if you were really doing it to kind of shoot yourself in the foot, for example. So watch out for any ways in which you might be trying to sabotage yourself around this time period. Now on December 7th, this is an important day to keep track of because Mars is exactly opposite the sun, and we call that maximum frustration day. So this around this time period, you might find that all of those issues that I mentioned with Mars retrograde in the 12th really come to the forefront in your life too. So definitely try to plan some sort of relaxing, de-stressing, calm, soothing things to do around that time period to sort of help with a little bit of the more frustrating and itchy parts of Mars retrograde. Now, Venus is a planet people love to hear about. She's a lot lighter than Mars. She's a lot easier to deal with. And she represents art, beauty, and relationships. And I've got good news about her. So she starts the month in your 6th house. This is a work house. It's also the house of health, routine, and it also rules organization in your life. So with Venus in the 6th for the first 9 days of the month, you might find that you're getting along well with your people you work with, whether they're colleagues, whether it's your boss, whether it's clients or customers. It's also a time where you can really enjoy and take pleasure in rituals in your life. Whatever your rituals are, whether you like waking up and doing yoga every morning, then making a green smoothie, those rituals in your life will just be a lot more enjoyable and pleasurable with Venus in the 6th. Then on December 9th, Venus enters your 7th house. This is the house of partnership, and she's going to be there for the rest of the month. So with Venus in the 7th, it's a wonderful time in your relationship. So if you have a partner and you want to introduce him or her to your family for the holidays, this is a great month for doing it. If you're single, it's a wonderful time to get out there and try to date more too, because you could have a little bit more dating luck during the cycle. Venus in the 7th is just such a wonderful fit and a really, really lovely time of finding more harmony and balance in all romantic things. And then Mercury, the planet that represents your mind, it represents also communication too, starts the month in your 6th house along with Venus. So for about the first week, both planets are in the 6th house. So big emphasis on work and health and routine. Mercury in the 6th house is a really wonderful time for getting organized. Clearing out those closets, cleaning up the hard drive, filing things for your taxes later. Really good time for getting organized in your life. You might notice that you're communicating more with your work partners, maybe socializing more with work colleagues too with Mercury in the 6th. And it's also a great time for planning and strategizing around health matters too, or communicating with other people about your health to sort of help you get things more of those ducks in a row. Now, on December 6th, Mercury enters your seventh house. Venus will follow him a few days later. And again, the seventh house is the house that represents your partnership. Now, it can also represent anybody who feels like a partner to you, whether that's a business partner. You can also have a platonic best friend too. That can also represent the seventh because it rules all one-to-one relationships. And Mercury in the seventh means that you might be eager to communicate with somebody else to get your best thinking done, having someone else to bounce your ideas off of. The seventh house can also represent contractors, people you hire for advice. So you might be thinking or communicating more with, thinking about maybe hiring or communicating more with the people you do hire as contractors. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that on the 29th, so very end of the month, Mercury is going to go retrograde in your seventh house. And you might even feel it about a week up until then, because Mercury just begins slowing down before he stations completely and pivots backwards. So Mercury retrograde cycles are a time of miscommunication. In your seventh house, that could be miscommunications with your romantic partner. If you're dating, you might have miscommunications with sort of new people you're dating as well, or you might be rethinking some of the people you're dating too. And it can also be a time where you might want to get a second opinion on some of the contractors you've hired. Maybe you thought this doctor or this lawyer or this consultant was good for you, and then you're just kind of going back over that again. So yeah, I would also avoid signing contracts with any contractors too during this period. And the Mercury retrograde cycle will continue into January, where we will bring it up again in our next month's video. So stay tuned for those.
Mm-hmm. Well, this month begins with such an emphasis on productivity, and that's because at the earlier in the month we had, Venus and Mercury and the Sun all hanging out here. And over time, they shift into the seventh house, which is the domain of relationship and partnership, as Julia has been saying. The first of this month's moons does emphasize that sixth house, but also the 12th house. And in fact, this full moon in Gemini coincides perfectly with Mars's maximum frustration day that Julia was talking about. And so any tendency to sabotage your own self with your actions, or to, sort of suppress your actions, this can also be a time of like acting in confusion and mystery, or feeling like maybe you should wait to act because you don't really know what you're doing yet. And that can be part of the frustration of maximum frustration day. But when it's wrapped up with a full moon as well, both coinciding on the 7th of December, I think it's really, really important to watch how this impacts your inner life, but also how it might backlash in your productivity, in your work life with the people that you see there every day. So watch out for that, and be careful of what you do with your high emotion during this full moon for the 3 days surrounding December 7th. The next thing that goes on is that the Sun makes its way along your sixth house, continuing to emphasize productivity, organization, and work life, and then finishes out the sixth house by moving into the seventh, which it does around December 21st, 22nd, depending on your time zone. Wherever the Sun goes, we really benefit from shining the sunlight of our high quality attention. That way things can go very well there, things can thrive there. Sunlight is very nourishing. And the seventh house is a domain of partnership. So when the Sun enters into this house, and it will spend generally on average 30 days traveling through any house, this one included. This is saying it's time to put some high quality attention on your partner and your partnership itself. You might think that once you fall in love and you engage in a partnership and you connect to somebody, that it doesn't really need any care and feeding from there onward, but you'd be wrong. And so this month, of all the months in your own year, is really a great time to bring that care and feeding, to bring that nourishment that comes from the light of conscious attention shining into your relationship. So it's a really good time to engage in the dialogues with your partner that help things go more smoothly. Now, really shortly after the sun enters into the seventh house, we see that the moon joins the sun on December 23rd for a new moon in Capricorn that we're calling transactional family relationships. And we're calling it that because the moon in Capricorn is the new moon in Capricorn is the one that happens nearest the winter holiday. And this one is quite close to the winter holiday. And it does tend to be a rather emotionally crusty moon. The moon is here in the sign opposite to the one that it rules. This moon is a little bit of a curmudgeon, a little bit grumpy, and so if you're headed home for the holidays and you're going to meet up with family members, I think that you can absolutely expect some grumpiness on the part of family members. And Jupiter's involvement with this moon is going to want to make the proceedings festive. And so finding ways to cajole your crustier family members, with even if it feels transactional, that might just be the way to get through. And even if it feels transactional in your relationship, and this is really where I think knowing about the love languages can help so very much. You may have heard of them, Julia, maybe you can help me think of them all. There's like gifts, there's quality time, there's physical touch, and kind words, and what?
And yeah, communication.
Yeah, I know there are 5 of them and I don't have them all memorized, but this could be a year in which figuring out what your partner's love language is. And even if you view it as transactional, like, oh, my partner loves gifts and I don't care about gifts at all, but okay, I'll give my partner a gift because that's how they receive love. This is a really great year for that sort of thing. Sometimes we just need to go through the motions, and that's okay. All right. That's what we have for you today, Cancer. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button here on YouTube, share it, and subscribe to our channel. You can find out more about this month's moons and our video about the astrological influences of 2023 on our website, pandoraastrology.com, in the forecast tab. And on our website, you can book a reading with us or take a class. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye-bye.
Bye.